Good morning, everybody. My name is Gautam Raghavan, and I work here at the White House as a liaison to the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community. And I wanted to say thank you for being here for what I believe is one of the most special and important events we're going to host here at the White House this summer. Each week we honor a group of ordinary citizens who are doing extraordinary things to improve and strengthen their communities around the country. We do this because we know that the best solutions and the most innovative ideas come from people and organizations around the country, and because real, lasting, meaningful change is led by ordinary citizens, not by Washington. As part of the Champions of Change program, we've honored breast cancer survivors and green jobs creators, Rotary Club members, and domestic violence prevention advocates. And just last week, I know many of you saw, we honored individuals and organizations who are on the front lines doing tremendous work to end youth homelessness. So this week, we're very proud to be honoring 6 champions of change, 3 individuals, 2 organizations, and 1 ensemble, who are working tirelessly to ensure safety, dignity, and equality for the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community around the country. And you don't have to take my word for it. As many of you know, their commitment to equality is demonstrated in the videos that they submitted as part of our video challenge. And if you hadn't had a chance to see them yet, don't worry. We'll play them throughout the morning so you have a chance to see them then. So this morning, you'll be able to hear from each of these champions about their life and their work, their struggles and obstacles, and the many ways in which they've succeeded. And I know all of you will be incredibly inspired and impressed and touched by everything that they have to say. But to get things started, I am honored to introduce someone who is truly a champion of change for the LGBT community within the Obama administration. So please join me in a warm welcome for the highest-ranking openly gay member of the Obama administration, Director John Barry.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and good morning. We are so happy to have you here at the White House, and it is such a joyous day and such an honor to be with each of you. Thank you for what you're doing, and Gautam, thank you for your leadership. You're a phenomenal leader in our community as well as this administration, and we're fortunate to have you. Each of you are an important part of our history, not just as part of the moment, but as also part of shaping the moment. As educators, musicians, community leaders, and now as video stars and producers, you are leading changes in our nation. For those of you who are a little older, like me and George, you can see and feel the change, not only in laws and regulations, but in attitudes. I spoke at a conference 2 weeks ago, the National Council of La Raza, where the proud parents of an openly gay teenager asked me if I had advice for their son. Let's just dwell on that for a moment. The proud parents of an openly gay teenager. Not every home is welcoming, as far too many of you here may know all too well. But thankfully more now are. And to your efforts, more will be. I went through my teenage years in the fear that my parents would never be proud of the real me. I didn't think I'd be able to participate in any of this, in government, if I was open and honest about myself. A little history for some of you younger in the audience today. When I came out, the laws on the books in over 20 states said that I was a criminal for being gay. Categorically, no gay man or lesbian could hold a top-level security clearance. In 1996, when my first partner died of AIDS, I was grateful that he was able to do so at home and not at a hospital that could easily have barred me from his side. All of this, the fear, the discrimination, the deep hurts that so many have suffered. Thankfully, they are fading into the past. We now live in a nation where a president declares that hospitals may not bar same-sex partners from their loved ones' bedsides. We live in a nation now where gays and lesbians no longer have to live a lie to serve the country they love in our armed forces. A nation where hate crimes are against the law of our land. And a nation where our president openly states his personal support for our marriage equality. This administration makes change that sticks, and it does it by doing it right. And the best news is, we ain't done yet. Let me just leave you with one final thought. Ulysses Grant, when he left the White House, was the first president to travel around the world. And wherever he went, this is in the age of before celebrity, before videos, he was the widest known living person of his day. And so wherever he went, he attracted huge crowds. He was the first president to go to China, the Middle East, and every country of Europe. And when he was in Germany, I feel sorry for the poor guy who introduced him, but he introduced Grant as the man who saved the Union. And Grant got up, and he put his speech aside, and he turned and he upbraided the man who had introduced him. And in doing so, he spoke from the heart, and it still rings today. He said, if I had never served, if I had never held command, if I had fallen dead, if every Union general fell dead, there were 10,000 in line behind us ready to pick up the flag and cause of Union and carry it home to victory. As long as our youth hold that fervor, there is no fear for our Union. You are champions. You are the 10,000 of this day. And you carry our liberty and our seeking for equal treatment under the law forward day after day. Through your example, through your vision, through your passion. God bless you for what you have done. God bless each of you in the room for what you will yet do. And may God always bless the United States of America. Thank you and congratulations. Thank you all.
We're just going to take a quick photo with Director.
I'm going to sit next to George.
Someone take the seat. Come on, Kristen. You got it? All right. And let's, hold on one sec. Let me just grab these out of the way.
God thinks everything.
All right, you got it? Okay, you good? All right.
All right.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you, George. Thank you for your service. Thank you.
See up here, just another second. All right.
Let me get out of your way, God.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry.
Absolutely. So thank you, Director Barry. What we're going to do now is just read off the list of the champions. Please feel free to applaud wildly for all of them. Don't hold it for the end. We're going to start, I hate that. We're going to start right next to me is the Redwood String Ensemble, which was formed in 2009 through the very prestigious Oberlin Conservatory of Music, where the ensemble consisting of some... Summer Lusk, Mackenzie Bauer, Lauren Spalding, and Rachel Grandstrad studied under the tutelage of viola professor Karen Rich, yes, and violin professor Marilyn McDonald. So please give them a round of applause. Standing next to them, we have representing the Military Acceptance Project, Kristen and Adam. MAP, the Military Acceptance Project, promotes acceptance of all service members, veterans, and their families through enlightenment, empowerment, and service. As service members, combat veterans, military family members, and active supporters of the military, MAP's founders believe that all people who willingly support and defend the Constitution of the United States deserve to feel accepted and be treated equally in their daily lives. So please give them a round of applause. Some fans. On the on your far right are David and Terry with CenterLink, the community of LGBT centers, which supports the development of strong, sustainable LGBT community centers to build a unified center movement. Founded in 1994, the organization now assists over 200 LGBT centers around the United States, and through them over 1.7 million people, in addressing the challenges they face by helping them improve their organizational and service delivery capacity and increase access to public resources. Please applaud them. Seated here to your far left is George Stewart, a former Army clerk and U.S. Air Force court reporter. He currently lives in Harlem, New York, where he sings in church show choirs. We might ask him for a little show a little bit later. And volunteers at the Harlem Office of Services and Advocacy for LGBT Elders, or SAGE. A featured speaker at the opening of the country's first innovative LGBT senior center, the SAGE Center, George spoke on behalf and speaks today on behalf of thousands of New York City LGBT elders who need the programs, services, and advocacy that SAGE provides. Please give him a round of applause. Next, we have JJ Kale. Did I say that right, JJ? Yes, who is a Spanish teacher at the Blake School in Minneapolis, where she also serves in the Office of Equity and Community Engagement. JJ is the faculty advisor for the Gay Straight Alliance at Blake, as well as their Justice League, a social justice student group. She lives in South Minneapolis with her partner, Judy, and their children. Please welcome her. And last but not least, from my home state, the great state of Washington, is Heather Carter, who developed and now runs Out Loud, an LGBT youth suicide prevention program at the Youth Suicide Prevention Project. Heather also serves on a statewide committee to oversee the implementation of HB 1163, Washington's anti-bullying law. In partnership with the Suicide Prevention Resource Center, she's also a member in a community of practice focused on LGBT youth suicide prevention, and she provides trainings throughout Washington state and the country on the issues of LGBT youth suicide and bullying and bias-based harassment. So please give her a round of applause. So as you can see, we have an incredibly distinguished and passionate group of champions up here. What we're going to do now is I'm going to ask all the champions to take a seat or seats, so please make room for them in the audience. And we're going to watch the first batch of videos. So please. Whenever you're ready, Andy.
The suicide epidemic in Anoka Hennepin has wakened all of us.
Lately been talking a lot about the teen suicides in the Anoka Hennepin School District.
In a time when the school could have been a great comfort, a movement here that started with just a few students who went on a trip to Washington to the march, LGBT march in Washington in 1999. And those youth came back and decided they wanted to start a GSA. I started as an advisor for the Gay Straight Alliance, what we call the GSA, 12 years ago. When we first started meeting, maybe 5 kids would show up, and it was the same 5 kids every week, and sometimes it was even fewer. When I tried to put up posters around the school, I would start at one end and put posters up, and by the time I got back around, some of them had already been torn down. If students don't have class, they can sit in here and kind of do a double GSA and then be here in the interim. And it just so happened that one year, I had a lot of students who would stay the whole time, and that interim time would kind of be like, we'd get rid of the programming and agenda and we just talk. And I'll never forget one lunch, 5 kids came out, just like that. And I just sat there and I thought, wow, okay, the demographics here just changed.
She was actually the first person I came out to, which was interesting because I didn't really know her that well, but she just had the reputation of being so supportive of everyone. I used to be totally terrified of discussing any sort of LGBT-related concept, and now I've gone out with our Justice League and presented at Creating Change. I've talked to aspiring teachers at the U of M, just really kind of found my voice in the community.
It's fun to know that my classmates have all been thinking about this issue, and they are on the same page as me.
We have students in relationships, that dates, everything that goes along with high school culture.
It's actually uncool to go around using homophobic slurs.
We are the school that lets our gay kids be happy in who they are. It doesn't turn us into a Sodom and Gomorrah. It doesn't turn us into some kind of a gay recruitment factory. What it means is that our LGBT kids are more likely to be invested, more likely to be their best selves, their best athletes, their best academics, and their best arts. We're talking about acceptance and embracing of people's differences and realizing that we're a stronger, better place if we have all of our voices heard. When they're finding their voices, they're feeling pride, they're not going to live in a closet anymore, they're not going to take the injustice anymore, then we've gotten somewhere.
I was absolutely bullied as a teenager. I thought about suicide. I was clinically depressed. I attempted suicide when I was 15 years old.
Each week in Washington State, an average of 2 young people die by suicide, and another 17 suicide attempts result in hospitalization. Keeping those chilling statistics in mind, Heather Carter, Out Loud Program Director, knows that while these facts are disturbing, there is hope. By educating students, parents, and faculty, she is making a difference. Heather Carter is a true champion of change.
Well, Heather created the Out Loud program. She really grew that program from nothing. She's tireless, she's fearless. I mean, she will talk to anybody at any time about Out Loud and about the needs of this community, and particularly with LGBTQ kids.
The reality, I think, for many of us is that we've got young people in the LGBT community that are struggling with depression, struggling with suicide, struggling with the challenges of bullying in our schools. And in our state, they don't have enough voices. They don't have people that are speaking up for them. But then you find someone like Heather, who is almost on her own, creating this movement of change, of advocating for young people in the LGBT community, making sure that young, marginalized gay and lesbian teens have somebody that's out there fighting for them. And also someone that's reaching out to them to give them that hope, to give them that opportunity, to give them the tools they need to really cope with a tough society right now. And that's what I see. I mean, Heather's really that that face and that voice and that presence and that champion for people that don't have a voice in the process.
So I was hired by the Youth Suicide Prevention Program in 2007 to start an LGBT component of the work that they do in Washington. The trainings that I've developed and that I do with Out Loud in particular are part social justice and part mental health support and education around suicide risks. And the idea is that if people understand what LGBT youth are going through and the risks that are in place, they're way more apt to change their behaviors if they are contributing to those risks, or support them in another way because they realize that the possible outcomes are anxiety, depression, suicide, and other high-risk behaviors. And I just know that I've always wanted to be in a helping field. Whatever that ends up being, I just know that I don't ever want anyone else to feel the way I did when I was a teenager. We should assume that youth today should have to go through it and survive, right? Because it's not about survival, right? We want these youth to flourish and be proud of who they are, no matter who that is.
Heather Carter, educator, mentor, mother, LGBTQ suicide prevention advocate, a true champion of change.
My name is George Stewart, and I'm 80 years old. I've been living in New York since 1964, when I got out of the military. When I went in the military, I think that's when I really got a real warm feeling in the company of other men. I didn't drink. But like I said, being in a segregated outfit, we were trained to be better than the average soldier. Like if they shine the top of their shoes, we shine the bottom as well. You know, in the military, I was in the legal office. I was a court reporter. For fun now, that at 80 years old, I do things differently than I did when I was much younger, when I first arrived in New York. Now I do a lot of hobbies like reading. I do a lot of volunteer work, which is why I'm here at Sage. And also do a lot of church work. I sing on my choir at church. But the older you get, you change. I mean, I don't want to hang out in the bars anymore like I used to. My body won't let me to begin with. So I have to face the fact that I'm a senior now. And the gay community is not into seniors so much. You know, you have to be young and all that stuff. Sage, to me, I was really surprised. I came here thinking that I would get this same feeling that I did with any other senior center. When I was asked to come here with my time off, who I met at a party, and he got to talking about Sage, and I said, well, when you come to Harlem, I'll join you, volunteer. And I did. It didn't take me long to realize that there was a difference. You all here seem to enjoy your work as much as we enjoy having you work for us, you know? And that makes a difference. I felt a warmth. There's a nice warmth. To this day, I still feel that. I think it's more mental, the help that I get from Sage, and I think it's simply because of the kindness. The staff seem to be very kind, but it all seems to kind of working like you're putting a bridge together. Everything fits you. What you do fits with what somebody else is doing. But you're all working toward that same goal, is to try to have LGBT seniors live as comfortable a life as possible. It makes you want to do the best that you can because you appreciate what they're asking you to do. Here, like at Sage, I'm working with people who care for seniors, who are working to make seniors have a better life, and that's where I fit in.
So I'd like to invite our first panel up here, JJ, Heather, and George, along with my colleague Monique Dorsainville from the Office of Public Engagement, who will help moderate our first panel. Please come up.
Gautam, thank you so much for that kind introduction. It's really an honor and a pleasure to share the stage with these incredible champions. Those videos were incredibly powerful and honest. To kick off our panel, I have a question that I'd like all three of you to answer, starting with JJ. With all of the challenges facing the LGBT community, what inspires you to do the work that you do today?
Well, I have to say, the most inspiring thing for me as a teacher and as a person who works with youth are the youth. They are our future. They are my heroes. I'd like to point out that the two students that were in the video are here today, and I'm just very proud of them and all of the other students, GLBT and Ally, who are working, who see absolutely that equality needs to be for everybody, and who are undaunted, and who absolutely inspire each other and those of us who are older than them to keep working toward change.
Thank you. Please.
So I think that just like in the video, going into the helping field, which I knew from a very young age that was where I was going to go, kicking and screaming, even if I didn't want to, that was the direction I was going. Social justice, human rights has always been my motivation and something that motivated me. And one particular experience that I just had not long before I came here, I think is a good example of the motivation, for my motivation. I was doing a training for a school in South Seattle, and it was Be the Change Day for youth. And I was invited to do a speaking engagement by their Gay Straight Alliance. And so I was doing a training on LGBT youth suicide prevention and intervention, and for all the school. And I was co-training with some of the Gay Straight Alliance youth in that school. And one of the particular youth in the training that was a participant opened up and said that in the previous year he had tried to kill himself, and that he had, mid-year after he had tried to kill himself, he had moved schools to this school because it was a better school for him, and that his family is absolutely not supportive of his identity, and he has continued issues, and that he continues to be unsupported. And so after the training, I went up to ask him to stay behind and talk to me, and I said, are you in therapy? Is there some kind of support going on? And he said, I am. It's not helping. And I said, let me talk to some people. Let me make sure that I can get the help that you need. And he said, can I hug you? And I said, absolutely. I never met this boy before, right? And so I hugged him, and I gave him my contact information and said, if you need anything else, let's, make sure you contact me. I had another session right after that, so I didn't have a lot of time for him, right? And this is unfortunately how it is. I'm a trainer, right? So he went to his next session, and that was my last session. I was getting all my stuff together, and right before I was leaving, I get this tap on my shoulder. And I turn around, and he said, Heather, sorry. He says, Heather, and sorry. I turned around, and this boy, and he just wraps his arms around me, and just hugs me so tight, and he says, thank you. And I said, what for? And he just said, I feel better. And all I did was that's it, just that little bit that I was able to give him, right? Fast forward to Gay Pride, and I was one of the Grand Marshals in the Great Gay Pride this year, and I was driving in a convertible, and in the parade, two of the girls that co-presented with me ran up to the car and said, Heather, 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 and I hugged them and whatever, and I saw the boy, and he's one of those, teenage boys, and he's kind of aloof, and he's like, right that, and I was like, right here, right? And he runs up to the car, that's all he needed. He runs up to the car, and I gave him a big hug, and I said, how are you doing? And he looked at me right in the eye, right? That's hard for a teenage boy sometimes, right? And he looked me right in the eye, and he said, I'm doing better. And I said, are you getting the help that you need? And he's like, I'm getting there. That, for me, that's the motivation for the work I do.
Thank you for sharing that. George.
Well, my motivation was not quite as powerful as but she just motivated me again too.
Me too.
But I can tell you that my motivation came when I started volunteering at SAGE.
Okay.
To me, and I think I told them that at my little session, it takes a certain kind of person, a special kind of person, to be concerned about seniors in general. but to be concerned about LGBT seniors who have lived their lives with as much trauma as I did as a teenage black man in this country. So I can bring that to the seniors. I know how they feel. And they had to live their lives hard, all of their lives. And now that they're seniors, they've lost their partners, they've been disinherited by their families, and it's been a tough life. I didn't have it that tough because my mother protected me from that. And so by the time I got of age to realize how homophobic so many people can be and how hurtful they can be, I was in the military, and so I was shielded from that again. But speaking of the military, the thing that got me off, it actually was funny to me when they had all this big deal about don't ask, don't tell. I was in the military, and I was in a segregated outfit. And we had gays in the military. In fact, I'll tell this story to the day I die. My platoon corporal was a flaming sissy in those days. And when he told us to fall out for reveille, he would say, "Okay, girls, make mother look good this morning." So, and what we did was we made mother look good. But we didn't think about it as anything derogatory or that's who he was. He was, well, we called him in those days sissies. So, a sissy. But we didn't care as long as he was shooting in the same direction that we were. That's all that mattered. So when I hear all this thing about don't ask, don't tell, I was confused. But now that it's happened, I'm glad because they were always there. All we're doing is acknowledging the fact that they're there. And they're doing a good job. So we used to say, when you dig in a foxhole, you don't care who jumps in there with you. Just make sure they're seen. And we have one rule. Sissies and heterosexuals alike, you do not bring discredit upon their uniform or your country. What you do on your own time and be discreet about it is up to you. And I carry that to this day. I don't want to do anything. So I adopted, my way of surviving this is, I look at everybody as a human being. When we cut, all of us cut, we bleed red. We bleed red. I don't see anybody with blue blood or white blood or black blood yet. We're all human beings. And once we get to realize that, and it takes all of us to make this country move forward, the better off we'll be. But my inspiration came volunteering at SAGE, realizing that SAGE is an organization for LGBT seniors. All seniors need help, but I think LGBT seniors need more help. And the fact that some of them have been isolated for so long, it's hard to bring them out. You know, they're just used to being kept to themselves. But we're working on it. And we got all kinds of organizations and programs that's going to do that. It's growing, I watch it grow, and I really think that SAGE has added a few more years to my life because we're all human beings at SAGE. You know, just like I want to be. I want everybody, we got gays working together and heterosexuals working together, and you can't tell the difference. And that's what I like about SAGE.
You're doing incredible work. JJ, too often we see LGBT youth living in isolation. What are some steps that teachers can take to make sure that a student is supported and able to become, as you mentioned in your video, his or her best self?
That's a great question. And with teachers, I can say, being a teacher, there are still many states where we can be fired if we are GLBT. And so teachers have to be careful, and they have to look at the policies and the culture of the school that they're working in, the community that they're working in. But regardless of how strict that might be or how closeted they feel they might have to live, there are still indications that you can give to students that can help make that isolation less a factor, at least in every moment of their day at school. Borrowing from both Heather and George said there were always gays in the military. There have always been gay kids at school. It's not a recent thing. It's not that all of a sudden we have more gay people than we had in the past. We've always been there. We've always had GLBT youth amongst us. Sometimes I speak to schools and they say, well, we don't have any gay kids in our school, so we don't need to do anything. If that's what you think, you need to take a good hard look at your community. Heather said in her video, it's not about survival. It shouldn't just be about surviving, it should be about thriving. And what teachers can do is take advantage of some great organizations that are there to offer support in curriculum and training. GLSEN is a great organization that helps, amongst many things, the idea of starting and sustaining a GSA, a Gay Straight Alliance, or whatever that organization is called. Recently, we've been talking a lot about what elementary school teachers can do. I think for a long time, people just assumed that GLBT stuff was emerging sexuality of youth in middle school and high school. And I just want to also talk about the issue of transgender and gender nonconforming youth and how that starts very young. And elementary school teachers can very much benefit from training and enlightenment and learning how to deal with children in a way that doesn't, quote unquote, gender their school experience to the point where they feel isolated can you imagine feeling that at age 5, age 4, much less being a teenager. So there are many things that teachers can do. Starting a GSA is a huge indicator of cultural health in a school. The Family Acceptance Project just issued a great body of research just a couple of years ago in 2009 that indicates that, guess what, if children feel accepted, the risk factors that are associated with GLBT youth decline dramatically. That seems like common sense, but we have now the statistics available to know that that's what we as schools must do. In Minnesota, we've had a debate, and you might have heard about it. The Anoka-Hennepin School District had a neutrality clause, which basically hamstringed many teachers into thinking that they couldn't respond if the child was being bullied because of their sexual orientation or gender identity. And recently a lawsuit was settled that demanded that schools do more than just be neutral. Neutrality does not get us anywhere. And we need to be proactive in supporting our GLBT youth. They are, amongst all the youth that we have, all of our kids are precious resources. They are the future of our country. And if they're only surviving and they're barely getting by and they are isolated, we are not fully enjoying the benefit of our resources, which are our youth. And if they're empowered, invested, and they're best athletes, best academics, and best arts, then we as a country, we as a school, are going to do better as a result. And so just a message to all my fellow teachers that are out there, from the smallest indication of your support for your children to starting a GSA, to becoming a school that has gender-neutral bathrooms, that has inclusive curriculum, that talks about GLBT people as being part and parcel of all of our lives, not just sexual orientation, but there are writers, our artists, our engineers, our mathematicians, just alongside everybody else to fully humanize that educational experience. That's what we need to do to make kids feel safe and welcome in schools.
Those were really useful and concrete steps that teachers can take, so thank you. George, in your video, you talked about your experiences serving in the military during segregation, and you talked about the intergenerational gap that exists in the LGBT movement. Can you talk about the benefit of bridging those gaps and ways that you've seen it done effectively in social movements over time?
Bridging the gap, well, yeah, I think with me it all started in the military,
okay,
when they integrated the military. And the way they did it was we just woke up one morning and these great big 2-ton trucks or 2x4s or whatever, I forget what they called them, all these white GIs start coming in and they disembarking. What's going on here? Then they call the names of the following men to jump on this truck. You know, and our guys who were jumping on that truck, they were integrating. They didn't ask us, they just did it. And it was quite an experience because we were over polite to each other. You know, the white guys opened the door for us. Oh, no, after you. But you know, the best way to get to, I'm gonna tell this little story. I was stationed over Japan, and there was this white kid came over, freckle face, blonde kid, from Tennessee. He was my assistant. I was a staff sergeant, and he was assigned to work with me. Okay. I asked him I said, Kemp, I want you to do so and so and so. He said, I'm not gonna do that. I'm looking at him now. I said, you gotta be out of your mind. I said, why? And you know what he said to me? I am not used to taking orders from niggers. So now, my first thing was insubordination, summary court-martial, or Article 15. But I thought about it, and I think this is the spiritual side of me. I said, this guy don't realize what he's saying. That's all he knows. He's been hearing that all his life and everything. So I asked him, I said, Kemp, come sit down and talk with me. Which would hurt your family more? You being court-martialed for insubordination to a nigger, or doing what I asked you to do and not get court-martialed? Which you think your family would appreciate more? I said, don't you think you should just go ahead and do what I asked you to do? He said, okay, sorry. But to make this long story short, after about 1.5 years, I was going back to the States. Charles Kemp was at my farewell party. I'm drinking this beer. He's sitting next to me. I drank it half of the bottle of beer. He snatches it and finishes it. Sits it down in front of me. Have I grown? I said, I think you have. But it tells a big story. First, I'm proud of myself that I didn't get all hostile and court-martial him, because I think I taught him a lesson. And then he wanted to give me his address so I could come visit. I said, oh, no. Thank you very much. But you see, I think that this is a man who's in Tennessee now, because he's much younger than me. And when he heard the derogatory remarks, he had second thoughts about it. He know that, no, that is not all true, because I'm convinced of that, and he's probably teaching other people. This is the way I believe we have to handle this. That can't fly off the handle too much. So I was proud of him, and I was proud of myself as the way I handled that. So that's the way we have to do this. This homophobia in this country is something it's going to take years to overcome. But people like Heather and the people I'm sitting up here and you people out there, we're learning and we're making strides. I know there's been a lot happening. I didn't even know I was gay, I guess, because I was shielded in the military. We were just men doing our thing. But when I got outside of the military, I realized there was a difference between heterosexual men and gay men. They didn't like us very well. And it was easy for me to be gay because I liked the opera. I like listening to classical music. I go to church. I sing on my choir. All of those are gay things in the back. And then when I started having trouble with my girlfriends because of this, I said, well, I got to make a choice. I'm not going to give up my Christianity just to get along with them, and I'm sure going to continue to love the opera. And I realized that my gay buddies like the opera too. They like to go to church and sing on the choir. I said, that's where I belong. That's where I fit in. So, and when they hear this video or see it inside of it, they're going to say, I told you so.
Full circle.
Yeah, but it's not going to bother me. At my age, nothing bothers me too much anymore. So we'll get there. And again, our seniors are getting great help from our organization, and they're helping me. I'm a senior too, so I'm helping myself when I help Sage.
Thank you so much. Heather, in your video, you touched upon a very important intersection, the intersection of social justice and mental health. Can you tell us a little bit about the role that mental health plays in the work that you do today?
So, I have my dream job right now. So before I went to graduate school, I worked in mental health. And I got tired of the bureaucracy and the mental health clients that I worked with, I felt were not even just secondary, I felt they were way low on the list of priorities. And so I went to graduate school and said, I'm going to work in social justice. This is my heart, my passion. It has always been my passion. And so when I finished graduate school, this position, I applied for this position thinking there's no way I'm going to get this. And I did. And I was like, wow, I get to start my own program. And it's one part social justice and one part mental health. And the executive director at the time, who was the founding executive director of the Youth Suicide Prevention Program, said, social justice and mental health, we're a youth suicide prevention program. We do training. I'm not really seeing where that goes together. And I was like, you can't separate the two for LGBT youth. And I think actually my perspective is you can't separate the two for mental health clients at all. So many people that suffer from mental health, it is about social justice for them and the lack of social justice. When I worked in mental health, I worked in crisis mental health, and I saw clients that I felt so often were at the stage in crisis that they were at because of the lack of social justice for them and the lack of understanding that okay, so I'm going to interrupt myself because cell phones have been a wonderful thing for people that hear voices. They have, especially Bluetooth and the things that are in your ears, because before, when I worked in crisis, they didn't have those. And so when people have talked to themselves and have voices, they would stand out a lot more now. And so I laugh every time. I don't have the Bluetooth and all that. I'm just not a tech-savvy person. And so I laugh now when I see people talking to themselves, whereas before I wouldn't. Because now I'm like, the first thing is, oh, right. And then I'm like, wait a second, they're just talking on their cell phone. And I laugh at myself because of my reaction, because at first I think I'm back in crisis and I'm like, oh, this person, you know. So and then I remember, no, they're just talking on a Bluetooth or whatever. So anyway, so you can't separate social justice and mental health. And so now I have this platform. Where I get the opportunity to educate people about the fact that you can't. And for me, I truly believe for LGBT youth that it is about the lack of social justice and the lack of understanding and the lack of social support for LGBT youth. And first and foremost, the recognition that they exist and that they are youth just like any other youth. And for their mental health needs, they have the same risk factors as all the other youth, and then a whole nother set of risk factors, or just the higher occurrence of the same risk factors as the other youth. And so for me, it's just, when she told me that was the question she was asking me, I was like, oh, that's so easy, right? Because you know, you get nervous when you get this, and I was like, oh, that's why I do this work. And I truly do believe I have my dream job, and the work that I do is amazing. Not my job, but the work that's out there, and the need of the work is great.
Thanks so much. So now we have a few moments left, and we're going to turn it over to the audience. So if you have questions, please just state your name, your affiliation, and where you're from, and let's see what you've got. Any takers? Right here.
My name is Chloe Schweike. I'm with the U.S. Agency for International Developments, and I'm in charge of our LGBT policy work overseas. And I just wanted to comment more than ask a question, and put it in your minds, and all of our minds, how critically important what you're doing is as a model for people overseas. You know, we often think that our world stops at our border, but we're being looked at all the time, and particularly in the LGBT world. I really commend the work that you're doing, and I encourage you to get the message out, to let people know that this is going on in this country. It may seem like we still have so far to go, but compared to what's happening in Africa and the Caribbean and other places, we're a light. So thank you very much for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chloe. Let's do right here.
Good morning. My name is Jesse Garcia, and I work for the Administration for Children and Families at HHS. And I just recently reconnected with a college friend, and she's very happy that we got on the phone, and she says, I have a 15-year-old daughter that's coming out. I need you to talk to her. I'm going to have this conversation on Sunday. And she's from a little town in Texas. So what 3 things should I tell this young girl who's biracial, living in a small rural community town in Texas about being 15 and possibly gay?
So you just nod. You said that it was her mom that called you?
We reconnected, and she says, by the way, I'm so happy I got to get you on the phone because I need you to help me.
So this girl has the support of her mother?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's huge.
Yes.
Because when young people come out, and I'll open this up to you all to answer as well, one of the first things is their safety. How safe are you, and what kind of an environment of support do you have? And they start talking about signs and indications that they have from their parents, from their siblings, from their school community and other important communities that they engage with, the level of safety and support they feel. So they might, and you might ask them, who is it that you can talk to face to face? Is there someone that you can, have you connected with someone? Do you have friends that are LGBT that you know? And ask them, like, for example, at school, is there a GSA? Have you been involved with that? Is that something that you could be involved with? But the fact that this child's parents support her, if you're LGBT, you know how important that is. That is so huge for this child, and will probably make just a tremendous difference in how she navigates the coming out process for herself. Having that piece in place, as George said, if you've got your mother and your father behind you, if you've got your parents behind you, it makes things a whole lot easier. So that would be one thing that I would say.
I second that. And the other thing is, as adults, we always want to provide all the answers. She's got the support of her mother. Fantastic. That's like she said, so important. The other thing I would say is, what do you need from me? And you're away, so what do you need from your mom? What is it that's lacking in your life that you need? What support do you need? What can we help you with? And we often forget to do that as adults with youth, to ask them, right? She needs to be an integral and active part of this process, or he, I think it was a she. Yeah, she needs to be an active part of this process. This should not be done to her or for her. She should be a part of that. And so just strongly encourage her mother to remember that, because I've got children and I want to protect them and do everything for them, but that's actually not to their benefit. So she should be definitely a part of the conversation, and fantastic. I think that was just like one of those perfect moments kind of things. So I'm glad you're a part of that.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. I find that the young people approaching people my age, and they want to know several things. They want to know, how did you survive being black in America at your age, and all this kind. Now they want to know about being gay, you know. And I said, first thing you have to do is love yourself. That's the big thing, no matter what people call you. My mother told me a long time ago, she said, son, it's not what people call you, it's what you answer to. And I took that with me. I mean, I've been called all kinds of names. And at first it used to hurt, but then, you know, I heard my mother say, isn't that what they call you? You gonna answer to that? No. And I'm gonna say something that may be not too true. I said, I think President Obama has learned that. He's been called a lot of things, but he answers to Mr. President. Yeah.
We have time for one last question. Right here in the front.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Alexa Manila, and I'm also a counselor at Seattle Counseling Service. First, congratulations to all of you for being recognized and also being role models and inspirations to the youth, the elders, and fellow advocates. My question is, as champions of change, what are your words of wisdom to folks, to people, especially LGBTQ people who remain silent? And I don't mean folks necessarily that are not out of the closet, and I'm certainly not forcing people to come out, but for the silent heroes who could be saying something or doing something. We've seen Prop 8 in California, you know, lose, and with Washington State, we're trying to make sure and ensure that Referendum 74 passes. But what are your words of wisdom to every person that still has a voice and just aren't saying or doing as much as they could?
Thanks for that question. And I'll start just by saying in Minnesota, we are also looking at an amendment on our ballot. It's an anti-marriage equality amendment. And we have a large organization called Minnesotans United for All Families that's working hard to fight against this amendment. And in a state like Minnesota, where we have a metro area, basically one metro area, some smaller kind of medium-sized towns, and a lot of rural area, the most important way to win hearts and minds and votes in support of marriage equality is by telling your story. And it's those conversations that neighbors have with neighbors, that friends have with friends. And if you've never spoken to somebody about your gay niece or nephew, or about your relative or friend who's LGBT, or yourself, that can be a scary thing. And in the Midwest especially, that might be something that people feel reserved about. But that telling your story and putting flesh to word is the most critical thing. What we found statistically is that if a voter knows one LGBT person, they just know them and can name them, the likelihood that they will vote for equality is exponentially higher. And so the stakes are high. LGBT people in all areas need to talk about their stories if they can. Obviously, there's a comfort level that everybody has to deal with, but it's incredibly important. It's what wins hearts and minds. And as people come out in all walks of life, we're not the caricature of gay people that like my parents might have had. When I came out, there were very few examples that my mom could talk about. Because she just didn't know very many gay people. And I think the more visible we are, the less we demystify what gay people are, and we just normalize it as much as we can, so that people see that it's it's kind of like being left-handed or any other human attribute that can occur, and that we deserve equal rights and justice under the law just like everybody else. So I think that's very important.
Do you want to add?
Well, I don't know. We do have a lot of people who are ashamed of being gay, and that's because society is so homophobic. They just don't want to fight the battle. And but we got guys that come to the agency who won't give you the right address because they don't want that mail coming into the mailbox. Well, they just haven't reached our level yet, and we just have to keep after them. One of my neighbors saw me on TV, and she says, "Oh, George, I saw you on TV. I didn't know you were gay." I said, "You never asked me." And so she said, "Well, good luck to you, But she still speaks to me on the elevator, we're friends, but now she knows something different about me. But from what I can tell, she hasn't changed yet. But we have to keep our churches are sometimes our worst enemy, because they got us think that the only people going to hell are gay people. And that's not true. Our churches need to do more to talk about LGBT in a positive manner. We got too many people sitting in church that think that homosexuality, you're just doomed to hell, which is not true. I read my Bible too, and it doesn't say anything about that.
Thank you.
But we'll learn.
Well, Heather, do you want to add?
So this one hits really close to home, Alexa, so I'm really happy you asked that. So I think back, so that same boy, obviously he's really affected me. He asked me to give him advice for the future, and I said, the one thing that I would change in my life, I'm not a person that would change in my life, but the one thing I would love to be able to do is to go back to my 16-year-old self and say, it'll be okay, right? And I'll tell you, I didn't come out until I was 25 years old. I had a lot of internal homophobia. I mean, I touched on it a little bit at the beginning of my video. I was so scared of what my parents would think, and I'll tell you, I was positive my dad would never talk to me again when I came out to him, and he accepted me 100% and has accepted me from the day that I came out to him through a letter, because I couldn't face him in person. And so it was very difficult for me. It took me living in Asia away from everyone to come out. And so I'm not speaking from a very safe place where I was just like, oh, it's so easy to come out and it's so easy to do this. And look at where I am now, right? And it has taken me step by step to even today come to terms with who I am and overcome all the issues that I had to overcome. And it's made me a better person the more and more I talk about it, and the more and more I confront my internal issues and the external issues in society. And so I'm not saying that everybody has to be where I am right here, because we can't be. Literally, not everyone can be here, but I believe we truly should all do the best we can with where we're at, and only we can be the judges of what that is. And so I truly do not believe we can judge others. Anderson Cooper, I think, is a good example. I was pretty sure he was gay, right? And I think everybody in the room was pretty sure he was gay. And so people would be like, God, he needs to come out. He's a role model. And I was like, it would be good if he came out. It's true, but he needs to travel his own path. But it is a positive thing that he came out. It is. But for anyone to tell anyone else what path to travel, I don't think is a positive thing. So anyway, my answer is we all need to do the best we can. And whatever that is, we make that decision.
Thank you so much to all three of you for sharing your incredible stories and just giving us a glimpse into the incredible work that you do. On that note, this is the end of our first panel. Please join me in thanking our champions of change.
I just want to really quickly recognize two people in the room, Sean Niddle and Drew De Niro. They were the people that made the video that I was in. Sean could easily be right here, right now. Alexa Manila should be here right now. The two of them should be in this position where I'm at. They're huge advocates in the Seattle community and beyond for LGBT issues. And I just want to say thank you, Sean. It was all his idea. Thank you very much. And thank you for all the work that you guys do. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you guys so much. We are now, for the Redwood String Ensemble, we decided that rather than have you watch a video of them performing, we would just ask them to perform for you. So it was quite a feat. Their instruments got sniffed by the dogs, but they are here to perform for you, and they'll be performing the piece from their video entry, which is Adagio for Strings by Samuel Barber. So let's just give them a few minutes to set up and perform for you.
Hello, everyone. As they're setting up, I just thought I would say a few words. First of all, thank you so much for allowing us this opportunity to play for you. We're all so young, and all of these people are just so incredible to us, and we feel very honored and humbled to be here and be a part of all of this. My name is Mackenzie Bauer, and I am an LGBTQ ally and a member of the Redwood String Ensemble. Our ensemble formed 2 years ago at Oberlin Conservatory in Oberlin, Ohio. We came to Oberlin as individuals from Illinois, Idaho, Texas, and Minnesota. While playing together, we discovered our similar love and passion for expression through music. We consist of openly gay women and LGBT allies. However, these labels have never influenced our opinions of each other as people or as musicians. Our want to inspire people through the acknowledgement and acceptance of our differences comes from the raw and intimate connection we share through our music. We'd like to take this opportunity to dedicate this performance of the Adagio for Strings by Samuel Barber, himself a gay American composer, to all of the members of the LGBTQ community, specifically to those loved ones we have lost due to discrimination and prejudice, as well as to others who have experienced similar hardship. We use our art as a way to express emotions that are not able to be spoken, and we firmly believe music to be the ultimate and universal language for all people. Please join us as we perform this piece in taking a moment of musical silence to honor those who have been affected by the discrimination, hate, and prejudice that surrounds the LGBTQ community.
Thank you all so much for your wonderful performance. We're now going to move on to the second panel. So please join me in giving them another round of applause. So if you'll just hold tight for just 1 minute, we are going to show the second round of videos, the last two videos, and then bring that panel up.
Across the country.
It's the center of our centers.
Until I found Centerlink, I felt alone.
We make sure that centers across the country and actually across the world have strong, sustainable foundations so that they're able to do the work that they need to do for the local community day in and day out.
Centerlink is one of the places where I find community as an executive director and CEO of a community center. It's an organization that I was very privileged to co-found in 1994 with 4 other leaders of LGBT community centers. We realized that there needed to be an organization that existed just to help strengthen and sustain the LGBT community center network.
Now we provide support for community centers, the 200 that exist all over the world actually, and help their boards, their staff, their volunteers to be better at what they do every day. We're actually housed in the Pride Center at Equality Park in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and we have 3 offices there. And on a typical day, we answer 10 to 15 telephone calls from individuals across the country who need assistance, who need resources, or sometimes just need someone to talk to about how to create a community center in their own location.
We have the ability to walk down the hall and bounce ideas off of Terry and his staff. I think it gives the Centerlink staff the opportunity to experience firsthand each and every day the impact of their work as well.
I could call Centerlink, and if they didn't have it, they knew where to get it. So it's like having your own little gay Google, if you will, where you can call Centerlink and say, hey, has anybody ever done X? And if they don't know, they can make a call to the over 200 centers, and somebody out there has some knowledge base about that. So the resources alone are literally life-saving.
The network that Centerlink provides just bolsters everything we do at this center, and we're able to, as one of the older, bigger centers, be a mentor for up-and-coming centers.
Centerlink is really, to me, the most important national organization our LGBT community can have.
I come from a military family. Both my mother and my father served until retirement. I always knew that I would be serving my country.
And I served because I recognized the tremendous amount of pride involved in serving my country.
So I wanted to save people's lives and jump out of helicopters.
I was looking for adventure and to serve my country proudly.
Both my grandmother and my grandfather served in the military. My father served in the military.
I saw my friend in uniform, and she inspired me. I knew at that point that I wanted to do something greater than myself. I wanted to serve.
Our driver jumped in the truck, we backed up, and just as we moved, we saw a mortar fall exactly where we were. As this was happening, I could see through the truck window. The sergeant was physically grabbing soldiers and putting them in the armored trucks for their safety.
I felt a tremendous amount of pride training my junior sailors to grow and to transform, to be the best sailors that they could be so that they could make a difference in the world just like I did.
I assisted with the launch and the recovery of aircraft on this ship.
My platoon and I made sure that our soldiers were ready to fight at a moment's notice, working around the clock to get the mission done.
One of the best aspects about being an aviation search and rescue swimmer was that I got to bring people home to their families that never thought that they were going to make it home again.
While in Iraq, we were mortared a lot, sometimes once, twice, 3 times a day. There was one day in particular that I'll never forget. I was blown up. I thought I had shrapnel stuck in my body, but I didn't. I was okay. And actually a sense of peace came over me that day, realizing that I wasn't supposed to die that day. I had more to do.
I love.
I challenge myself.
I serve.
I bleed red, white, and blue.
I'm a survivor.
I have faith.
Just like you.
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 I am just like you.
So I'd like to invite our second panel up here. All right, so we're going to just do a couple of quick questions up here, but please start thinking of your own questions if you have them. So I thought it'd be great to start with each of us introducing ourselves. So Terry, do you want to kick it off?
Sure. I'm Terry Stone. I'm the Executive Director of Centerlink, the community of LGBT centers. We're in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, as you heard. I've been working in the LGBT community. Sometimes I tell folks I'm gay for pay for the last 23 years. It's been a great life for me, and I love what I do. And I'm lucky to work with LGBT centers all across the country and actually in some foreign countries right now.
Excellent.
Good morning. My name is David Kelmnick, and I'm the co-chair of the board of Centerlink, and very proud to have Terry Stone as our leader and executive director. And while I'm not doing board duties, I'm also the chief executive officer of the Long Island GLBT Services Network, which is an association of 5 nonprofit organizations, including Long Island Gay and Lesbian Youth, also known as Legally, the Long Island GLBT Community Center, SAGE Long Island, East End Gay Organization, and Equality Long Island.
Great. Kristen?
Good morning. My name is Kristen Cavanaugh, and I'm the Executive Director of the Military Acceptance Project. We started a year ago out of the University of Southern California as part of a student project for graduate social work students. Myself, I served in the Marine Corps for 5 years. I was a captain when I got out, and I served under the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy during that time.
Hello, my name is Adam Christ. I am a Navy veteran, and I served for 6 years, also under the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy. And it was that experience of serving in silence that prompted me to become involved with the Military Acceptance Project.
So Kristen and Adam, I wanted to start with you because I know we just watched your video, and just like you was a refrain throughout it. So I wanted you to tell us a little bit about the campaign that you're doing around that.
Perfect. It started, we had a conversation with Eric Alva, who is a former sergeant in the United States Marine Corps.
There you go.
I don't know if anybody is aware of Eric, but he was the first service member wounded in Operation Iraqi Freedom. Also happens to be a gay man. We interviewed him when we first started our project, and our communications director asked him, what would you say to individuals if you could tell them something about gay and lesbian service members? And he would say, I would tell them that I'm just like you. And that really resonated with us because it's the truth. We're no different than anyone else who has stepped up to serve their country. And so we've started the campaign around that, just to let service members know that we've been out there, as Adam will tell you, and have done amazing things, and are no different than anybody else. And we want to make that connection, and I think, as JJ said in the first panel, really put a face to the stories and the experience of gay and lesbian service members.
And if I could ask the question for both of you, we're coming up on just about a year after the full and final repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And you guys, are you both in San Diego? Mm-hmm. Which is obviously a huge military town. How have things changed on the ground for you? How have the lives of the vets and the active duty folks you're working with changed?
Well, I was just telling someone earlier that San Diego Pride is this weekend, and last year they had the first contingent of military personnel, even though Don't Ask, Don't Tell was still in place, they marched in just plain clothes. But this year, they actually get to march in uniform down the parade road. It'll be the first Pride Parade in the country that individuals have marched in uniform. So things have changed tremendously, and they continue to change at a rapid pace.
That's terrific. Terry and David, I think you can provide sort of a national perspective and also the perspective of someone who's working and running a GLBT center. What is, in your opinion, the #1 challenge or issue that your centers face on a day-to-day basis?
I think it's the struggle to make sure that you continue to provide the relevant services that are constantly changing for your community. I mean, funding is always one of those things that's it's difficult for people, but I think it's making sure that whatever you're doing in those doors every day is something that the folks really need. It's reaching out to your community, making sure that you're working with seniors, just like George talked about, making sure that the youth have a place to come, and then also finding that place in the middle for new families, for folks with children, for the broad spectrum of what our community has become. Some of our centers are doing programs for veterans and saying, we need to find a place to welcome them in, make them part of what's the rich history that we provide here. So I think it's making sure that we're relevant every day, day after day, making sure everyone has what they need when they walk in the door.
And David, could you speak to specifically, some of the issues you face in Long Island and whether they're unique to the area or to running a community center?
Sure. Well, I want to echo what Terry said, is that, basically community centers are the front line for the LGBT community, where we're providing health services. We're out in the schools helping to start GSAs and maintain GSAs. We're providing senior services. We're not only providing the important health and human services, but we're also doing a lot of community organizing. So if a policy issue around marriage comes up, either meetings are going to be held at the center, or the center is going to be the one organizing the efforts to fight for that equality. So the center really has to be, although we always hear you can't be everything to everyone, the center has to be everything to everyone, and it makes it a challenge, particularly on Long Island. Long Island is very long, right? So you have, I guess that's why they named it Long Island, and so, you have Long Island, which is 120 miles long in length, and has close to 3 million people who live on Long Island with a very poor public transportation infrastructure. So the challenge at home on Long Island is that we can't have one community center. We have 2 right now, and we're planning to have a 3rd, so that we could make sure that no matter where you live on Long Island, you're less than 1 hour from a community center. And why that's so important is because that is where community is built. That's where we make our community healthier. That's where we organize. And so some of the, being a suburban center, and of course being close to New York City, and sometimes people think that we're New York City, and we're not. It's a totally different landscape. Being in a suburb makes it a little bit more challenging also.
So, Kristen, if I recall correctly, MAP was largely started by social workers, correct? How does that inform the kind of work you're doing or your approach? I mean, obviously, there are a number of organizations that work with gay and lesbian service members, vets, military families. I'm just curious, how does that change the way you do business?
Heather talked about the intersection between mental health and social justice, and we believe that those two go hand in hand. And so as social workers, we're taking a look at the issues for LGBT service members and veterans from a holistic perspective. How can we support service members mentally, physically, and then in their everyday lives? So we definitely look at that intersection, and that's what social work is. A lot of people misunderstand our profession, and so we're out educating about social workers really getting out and taking a look at the mental health. Serving under Don't Ask, Don't Tell has been traumatic for a lot of people. And if you're looking at treating trauma, it doesn't matter if it was, we call it big T trauma, you're out in combat and something happens like that, or little T traumas like going to work every day and lying about who you are. All of those things build up, and all of those things have mental health implications. And so we want to be sure to address the mental health side as well as the social support side.
Sure. Adam, did you want to add anything?
No, that's really more Kristen's department.
So I have a couple more questions, but folks feel free to jump in at some point. One question I think a lot of folks here have for all four of you is, what can they do? We have a lot of incredible leaders in this audience and watching live right now, and I think they'd be curious to know, what can they do either to support a local community center, what can they do to support gay and lesbian vets or service members, and just would welcome your thoughts on that.
Well, I think it's becoming involved, and I'll piggyback that with, I think it was Jesse was asking the question about how to help his friend. The way you help your community, you help us, you help community centers, is you get them to be involved and you get them to reach out. One of the best things that we do, and I think one of the things that has the biggest impact, is we have a rich resource of centers, individuals, organizations, both our community centers and our national partners that we work with all the time. So when someone calls Centerlink and says, I have someone that's coming out, I don't know what to do, where do I go? I can tell you in 10 to 15 minutes, we can find a resource for them. We can usually find an individual. We could call PFLAG. We can do so many different things. And what we want our partners to do and what we want the community to do is just become part of what we are. Become involved. Volunteer, engage, give your time, give your resources, because that's the only way we're going to make this work. It's all of us working together and pulling together and using each other to just make a better community.
God, I'm always going to want to echo what you say.
Good, that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. I'm a good board chair, right? Yeah, co-chair. I'd like to give a shout out for our other co-chair, Lorraine, from Metro Centers in Tampa, St. Pete. So. But I do think also that, and the question was asked for the first panel also, what can people do, what should people do, perhaps those that are silent, or that we don't see visible. And so, for the volunteer, certainly, volunteer in whatever capacity that you can. Give back. I grew up, besides being gay, I'm also Jewish, and I know, growing up as a young Jewish kid, part of our culture was given something called tzedakah, which was to always give. A little can was passed around. Not like a coffee can or anything. It was this fancy can. And so this can was passed around, and we would put in whatever we had, a penny, a quarter, $1, so that we knew we were giving back to something greater than what we were getting where we were. And I think we kind of need to instill that culture in our young people and also throughout the life. So I say volunteer. And give whatever you can to your local organization, to your national organization. It's real important that we take care of ourselves as well.
Kristen?
We pride ourselves as conversation starters, and we believe that having those difficult conversations with people will lead to more and more cultural change. That's why we did the video that we wanted to do. We wanted to start that conversation about the service of military members and their families. So we want to get out nationally and have those difficult conversations to keep the momentum going. It takes money and time to do that. So giving or donating helps us get out and talk to more people. Until we can get out nationwide, we need your help in starting those difficult conversations. There are situations that happen in everyday life, and we let those teachable moments pass us by because we don't talk about it. We don't want to make people uncomfortable. We're asking you to make people a little more uncomfortable in the name of cultural change. So that's something little that you can do. If you hear someone use a slur, if you hear someone say something demeaning, address it. It's only going to be uncomfortable for a minute, but it's going to make that person think the next time they decide to say something that might be inappropriate. So it all starts with a conversation. If you are part of an organization that would benefit from having somebody like us come to you and talk to your staff or talk to anybody, we would love to do that, to have those conversations in the name of building a better team and building a stronger team. The word acceptance has been used a lot here today. That's because it's a very powerful word, and it can affect your team, it can affect your community, and it can affect your business. And that's what we're trying to do. We are affecting that change in a positive way.
I have to say I agree with everything that everyone has set up here. I think having the conversation that Kristen just talked about is tremendously important because it gets people here. And it kind of seems counterintuitive, but when you get people in your heart, that's what changes their mind. And that's what gets them to start thinking that I never really thought that this was affecting this group a certain way or it was affecting a person a certain way. And in addition to that, I agree with volunteering your time or donating money. And if you're not sure where to go or where to start, find something that's important to you and get a hold of a group that is involved in that, a veterans group or your local LGBT center or a suicide prevention program or a GSA, and say, how can I help?
Well, why don't we go ahead and open it up? I see a question here already.
Hello, I'm Sean Niddle, the associate editor at the Seattle Gay News. I'm also a 10-year veteran of the U.S. Navy, so I want to say thank you for your service and what you're doing. One of the things that I talk about a lot is that to change the culture of us and them, and I think that within the LGBT community, the responsibility falls on us to kind of influence that change, that we can't continually separate ourselves, and we have to reach out to our straight allies and then challenge them as well to talk to their friends, their family, about why they do support us. So, you know, Heather had pointed out that Drew is the videographer for the video that we submitted. Drew is 22 years old, and he is a straight ally to the LGBT community. On the end over here, we have Daniel Hanks, who we invited with us, who is also a straight ally to the LGBT community and has raised money in Seattle for various projects. And Doris as well is a straight ally who works at a university in Philadelphia, who has also been involved with outreach. And I challenge them to tell everyone in their life that, you know, we know we have their vote, we know that we have their support, but they need to tell everyone else that they do. And what happens is more of their friends come forward and talk about, you know, I am actually aboard with this. So us and them. And I think what I learned in the military was to mentor people. People that are younger than you, to reach out, to mentor them, and to influence that change in their life in a positive way. What I find with many LGBT youth today is that they don't understand mentorship versus maybe a sexual predator, let's say. The difference between the two is hard for some in our community who are young to see that, because we're not having conversations with young people just as older gay men, as older lesbians, you know, as someone in the transgender community. We're not doing that unless we have a title, like I am a, you know, suicide prevention specialist. And so my question is, in regards to what you're doing, how does your organizations approach mentorship and letting people know to reach out and to talk to others? How do you integrate that into what you do?
Terry, do you want to start?
Sure. But I think the richness of community centers and the work that they do is that they bring people from all walks of life, all orientations, all genders, all gender identities together. I mean, our video team was certainly not just a lot of gay people putting the film together. Bruce Presley and Laura D'Antoni are in the office, and the folks that they brought to this process was very rich and very diverse in helping us tell the story of what we do. That's what happens at community centers every day, and that's what they do the work to help mentor the folks coming in. And it's not always just young. We also see a chance to mentor those that are older adults coming into our buildings as well. Just because some of them have been in heterosexual relationships for a long time, something's happened in their life and they've changed, and so they're looking for mentors as well. We believe it's very important that we don't put the stereotypes that others want to identify us by out there. That we make sure folks know that we're here to help everyone that comes in the door, that we're there to help mentor wherever you are and whatever you need to happen in your life. And I think that's what centers do extremely well.
Kristen, did you want anything, or Adam?
Sure. Don't Ask, Don't Tell has only been repealed for a year, so it's new for LGBT service members to start mentoring or put a face to the issue. So it was very important for video participants, who are all here today, by the way, so I would like to recognize them for being here. they're putting a face to the situation. And they are the role models for those individuals who have yet to come out or who still may be concerned about their command. And so that's a huge step, considering where we are in this process, for people to just stand up and say, hey, I served our country, but I'm also gay or lesbian. And so that's the first step for us. Let's just put a face to their service to really negate all of the stereotypes that people have about us swinging from the rafters and wearing boas. You know, we've got people that are rescuing people out of helicopters and getting blown up and things like that are really out there making a difference. So thank you all for being role models and taking this risk.
So we have time for one more quick question. So who's going to be really quick? Right back there? Oh, can we grab him a microphone? Microphone.
Speak really loud.
Oh, or you can speak.
I'm Paul Bain. I'm the vice dean back at University of Southern California. One, I want to congratulate everybody for what you've accomplished here, but the thing that we're also realizing, we have the only military social work program in the country, and we've been there for about 3 years now in that program. We've got about 250 people that have come through the program, but what is stunning to me, and also comes out as a result of this exchange, is with our students like Kristen and all the other ones that are here, is how much human capital we've lost in the military as a result of this policy, but also recognizing that these folks are going to continue to serve, but in a different capacity. So we have them back. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And actually, Kristen, that prompted me to ask you this hopefully last question, which is what can we also do? You know, something that is always a priority for us is taking care of our vets. So what is it that we can do, the administration can do, that folks in this room can do to help some of our folks who are obviously tremendously talented?
The first thing, and one of the most impactful things you can do, is say thank you. There is an entire generation, multiple generations, that have not heard those two words, and they're dying to hear it from us. So if you can just take a moment and tell a service member or tell a veteran, thank you, that's going to make all the world of difference in their life and build up their self-confidence and hopefully help them go out to do more. If you're in a capacity where you can hire a veteran or you can help them out in some other way, please do. It's hard for us to go out and market ourselves as veterans. We don't like to talk about that a lot because that's what we're told to do in the military. You know, it's about the team. We put other people before ourselves. But if you have a chance to help somebody out, do it. You won't be disappointed. We all bring an amazing skill set to the table, and you're going to want to hire more of us once you get the first one in the door. So.
Well, thank you all very much. I want to thank the panel. Please give a round of applause. And here to help us close out the program is my boss and the director of the Office of Public Engagement, John Carson.
Well, welcome to the White House, everyone, and I want to give a quick round of thanks to Gautam for putting this event on today. And so I'm here to end this LGBT Video Challenge Champions of Change event with an ask for all of you who are here in the audience today, and ask especially of our champions today, and all of you online as well. And that ask is to help us tell the story of what you saw here today. Tell the story of your connection to what's going on in the LGBT movement, what's going on in your community. Tell the story of your passion, of your connection to the stories that were told today by our champions. You know, we have a number of these Champions of Change events here at the White House, highlighting different issues and really highlighting the fact that while we may be having policy fights here in Washington, D.C. over everything from budgets to taxes to who knows what, there are thousands of Americans every day making change happen in their community, like our Champions of Change here today. And that's the story we need you to tell. We need you to tweet it, we need you to blog it, we need you to write it, we need you to find 3 people in the grocery store this weekend and tell them about this, tell them your passion, tell them your connection to this. And my ask of you to do that is for 2 different reasons. First, We just have some great ideas, some great stories, some great best practices, some information to share with people. You may have heard today of an approach that's being taken in a different part of the country. You may have seen our very first musical ensemble at a Champions of Change event today. You may have concrete information to share, and we need you to do that. But there's another reason I want your help in telling this story of our champions today, and that's that what I think we can all agree on, no matter how we come down on the different policy fights that we're having in DC, that we're having across the country, we can all agree we need more Americans believing they can be agents of change as well. And when they hear the stories of what our champions today did, of starting an organization that has provided support to millions of families across the country, when they hear the difference that's being made in school districts and communities, they're going to say, maybe I could do that as well. And that is the number one outcome. That is the goal of this entire program, and we ask your help in doing it. And one more big thank you to our champions of change today.
So that concludes our program. Thank you all for coming. We will send around the blog post so you can forward this out to your friends and networks. So again, thank you so much. Thank you to our champions, and have a good day.